for academic faculty, which you all know. You're going to go from a STEP program to a range program. They had a task force that was done, I guess, a year ago, and handed out to the colleges, and the colleges were told to transition their faculty, and that all the faculty salaries would be transitioned so that they stayed the same. Whatever you make now, they're just going to move it from that one structure to a new structure and keep it the same, with a couple of exceptions. One, if you happen to be below the new minimum, then you will have to be brought up to that minimum. So those faculty will automatically, by policy and law, be moved to the new minimum. Second, because you're moving them to the new minimum, there's going to be people that were already there that have more years of experience that will now be paid the same. And so you can make what they call a compression, salary compression adjustment or internal equity adjustment to make sure that there's the appropriate differentiation for that. When you do that first level of change, there's a domino. And so it goes on down the line. And what we're going to do is look at that and make recommendations on how to address that issue with respect to salary equity. We already know from all the studies we've done, it doesn't go all the way to levels 12, 15, and stuff like that. It goes for about the first 7 or 8 years, and then it starts to dissipate and get smaller as it goes. But that's only one type of salary compression. The other thing they said that you could do is you can address internal equity in general. And so the college has identified two, the one for moving people to the minimum, and the second one is the fact that you've had salary moratorium or salary freeze for 5 years, right? And so on a STEP program, if you're step 4, 5 years ago, you're probably still a step 4 right now. And so if we transition you over, it's like you didn't exist for 4 years. So the idea is to look at everybody and make sure that they're in the correct step, so that if a person's a step 5 and gets put over, and you should be a step 5, you want to go at, say a new person was hired as a step 5, and they get transitioned to step 5, you're step 1, but you've been here 6 years, you should be transitioned as a 6, not as a 1. And so that's what we're looking at. And that's what they've allowed the colleges to do. I don't know that all colleges are doing them. Just for your information, the data points for this came from a market study that they do for universities using CUPA, College of University Professionals Association, data to benchmark or to determine the market salary for university professors. And they determine the median, and then of course you know this, they take a certain percentage, and that's what the state professors make, and another percentage, and that's what the community colleges make. So they took 78% of that median as the catalyst or seed point for developing your range salary structure.
And that's actually new at CSN.
Right, that's new. And our job is to help you, is help the college and the faculty move from one to the other. Let's go to the next one. Here's your new salary structure. And this is the 78% of the university median. And so that's where they get this. And they stuck it right in the middle of this matrix as a seed or catalyst starting point. Then what they did was they added 12% to get to here and 20% to get to there, and then went down 88% and 80% to get to there. So now they had the medians for each one of these, your 5 grades or 5 classifications. Then that's what's represented here. Then they use these factors here, which are linked to your original salary step schedule, to create the ranges that would go, which gives you the minimum and the maximums. These minimums here will be higher than the minimums you had for people in the first 5 steps. If you look at the old salary range on the previous chart, you'll see.
Salary range, the first.
Pardon me?
the original salary rating or the
You bring up the slide with the.
Yeah, bring up the previous slide.
No, I think the one that shows the salary schedule.
Yeah, it's the next one.
It's a fixed
Next one. Yeah, here it is. Yeah, here's what you had, and this is what they changed to. And here's the 78% value. So one way they describe it is they turn it on the side, and they slot you in there, and then they get rid of the steps. But if you look at the minimum here for a grade 1 is 37,353. Well, you have faculty here that at step 5 and below that make less than that, and that are well, those are the instructors. Those are instructors. And then at professor levels, 37,3. It's step 4. All of these people. So all of these people and all of these people. Well, let me just stick with faculty, the tenure track. Step 4 and below will get bumped up to this minimum. For people.
dollars tenure, with or without tenure?
This column here is without, this is non-tenured, and this is tenured.
On the right side, is that number?
This one here?
Someone with tenure or without?
Yeah, this is the tenure.
With tenure.
Yeah, this is just the tenure.
No, that's not the tenure, pay for tenure.
So you get a little bump
Oh.
when you get tenure. So I was just wondering which number it's equivalent to, the right side or left side of that column?
Do you know the answer to that?
I don't know for sure.
I would assume from my experience is that this is your base salary and this is your base salary. And so, and you just remember that it's hard to do, but you have to pull yourself away that these aren't people, this is a salary structure. And so they add the individual merit and other stuff
So those
later.
numbers assume tenure, basically, on the right.
I would say,
Yes.
my guess is like Dan said,
Yes.
probably not. It's probably the
Oh,
base.
they
Oh.
assume no tenure.
Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah.
Because that's the base, and then they add, I don't know. We don't know.
Yeah, we
I think
will,
that's right.
yeah,
Good question.
yeah.
It does not, well,
This, I would guess,
It doesn't.
I'll tell you what, because this came from the state, they don't care whether you pay for tenure or not. So this does not represent tenure. This would represent base. Because maybe Truckee Meadows has a different tenure rate, or do they have tenure? You know, or some other colleges. So they're just going to give you the base salaries, and then the individual colleges can, basically what they're saying was, we'll let you play inside the boxes, but you can't play with the parameters, is basically what they're saying.
so John, there is still the intention to have that bump for tenure.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that's, okay.
Yeah.
There's still, and you know, people will still get the title of professor with tenure and all.
Yeah.
So yeah, it doesn't do away with tenure or anything like that.
I knew it didn't do it with tenure, but it doesn't do away with tenure bump. That's
No.
gonna be a
Yeah.
question we get.
Usually when we do the analysis, look in compression, we'll back out tenure, we'll back out rank, if you pay for rank, all that stuff, and we deal with base. And you make all your adjustments to the base, and then you add it back in, and then you transition. But that's just an example of the people that would be affected down here because of the new minimum. And so they'll be moved up, and a result will be salary compression. And so we have to have a fix for that. Okay, go ahead. Highlights of the project. Just to kind of focus on what the scope of work is to develop a strategy for moving academic faculty from the step plan to the range plan, a strategy that takes into account internal equity. As much of the internal equity that we can identify that's related either to the transition because of the result of the salary schedule change, or because of the moratorium, or furloughs and other things that have occurred that might have produced or resulted in you being in a step or being stagnant in a step. So that when they make the change, those 4 years don't just, leave. 5 years, thank you. So that then we're also going to update the market positions for hard to recruit positions. You have a separate salary schedule for hard to recruit positions. They're non-tenured track. They haven't done a market study on that. So they will do a market study, or we will do one locally and regionally to see if that needs to be updated. State didn't do that. I wonder why. Why they didn't? They control everything else.
Well, the market factor salaries
Uh-huh.
are set by each institution.
Okay.
So, and she doesn't set them, they set a list of what
Yeah, they-
disciplines are difficult to recruit.
Right.
But, for instance, our market is different than trucking medicine.
Oh, okay. That's good. That's a good idea.
So the institution looks at their market area and sets the salary accordingly.
All right, well, let's, and then we'll also look at any compensation policies that impact your salary, whether they need to be revised or changed in order to maintain whatever gains and fixes that we make, so that they don't come back again, because they probably could be contributing to that. Okay. Here we listed some of the causes of compression. We already mentioned it. New people getting their job, they're getting up to minimum will bump into people. That in turn will cause impact on the people in those positions. It'll only be in the first 7 steps, because that's the only place you can hire people. Excuse me. It'll only occur at the bottom levels initially, then it'll have a domino effect. The other one is when you hire new hires that come in that are hired at step 5, say, and they just picked up 5 years of credit, the same years you were working, although it was outside and you're inside. So we'll look at that, to do that. And that's basically what we've been asked to do. Now, let's go on. About us, real quickly. We do a lot of consulting services in higher education, but also in the private sector. I should let you finish this, because you're an expert on this.
I'm an expert on that. Anyway, just a little bit of housekeeping about us. We are founded in 1994. We organized in 2004 when I joined the Purchase Housing Physical Company. And we started focusing on higher education as well as other governmental agencies. Prior to me joining, Dan was focusing on K-12 and higher education as well on the statistical support analysis basis projects. Just a little bit more about our team. Dan is a graduate of University of California, Berkeley. He obtained his PhD in cognitive psychology and measurement there in 1979.
83.
1983.
1800.
That's right. And for this project, he's our principal investigator. He will perform mainly all of the communication between ourselves and the faculty and the project managers in the administration side. He will do the final sign-offs of all the deliverables. He will perform statistical analysis, job analysis, and compensation structure review for this project. Myself, I'm a graduate of the University of Hong Kong. I obtained my bachelor's degree in finance and HR. My primary duties include project management, resource allocation management, job analysis, job description review, as well as market study and cost-benefit analysis. I will provide all the financial impact of all the deliverables that we provide to you as a financial modeling of alternatives. Sheila Ortego is actually the president of Pima College, interim president for Pima College at this time. But she is an president emeritus of Santa Fe Community College for many years. And we are very, very lucky to have her in our team. She will do most of the advocacy when it comes to communication. It becomes necessary to communicate with the Board of Regents. She will be on our side doing that communication because of her experience in the higher level of administration.
She actually started her career at Santa Fe Community College's administrative assistant while she was getting a degree, and eventually she got a doctorate degree and then eventually became president. So she's worked through at various levels. She's real knowledgeable about that.
She will also review my deliverable in terms of financial modeling and cost-benefit analysis. That's one of her jobs as well. Brian Stout, he is a faculty at Alamo Colleges, to be exact, Northwest Vista College, which is part of the Alamo Colleges. Yeah, but he's a graduate of the University of Texas. Oh, okay, I'm sorry, go
Well,
ahead.
I mean, no, I kind of introduced myself earlier, but, you know, I've founded our faculty senate. I'm one of the founding members. I'm the only one still on the senate from the founding members. I've been senate president. I've been sort of what most people would call chair of our department. And so, you know, I'm very a faculty person. And so when we went through this system, I was a part of a committee that we had. And I took charge of a lot of the data analysis on that committee. And so,
Yeah, we did a similar study for Alamo Colleges. Alamo Colleges in San Antonio, Texas, it consisted of 5 colleges. And about, I think at the time there was over 900 full-time faculty.
Mhm. That's right.
So it's a large college. And we had a 5-year project, and we developed their salary structure. And we moved them from a STEP to a range program. And we worked with the faculty to do that. They were opposed to it, but in the end, they ended up working with us to help us design it. And it seems to be working for them. But we also did the compression, and that's when Brian was brought forward to help us design a strategy for incorporating inequity into salaries as a fixed before we transitioned them. And he was, it says there, he recently received the Star Service Award for his role in Alamo College's Faculty Compensation Committee.
That's right. And then, of course, we have James Fleming, also a graduate of the University of California, Berkeley. UC Berkeley, he obtained his PhD in psychological measurement, evaluation, and quantitative methods. For this project, Jim will be doing a boatload of statistical analysis for us, as well as reporting support. And next to him is also James Litternick. He obtained his MA in educational psychology from the UC Berkeley as well. His duty is almost similar to James Fleming, because he's also very much statistically an expert in statistical methods. He will do faculty compensation research, data analysis, and reporting, mainly because of his previous role with CUPA, College University Professional Association, and she has gathered most of their market data from, and Jim Litternick will provide an insight as to how best to cut or to analyze all the information that's obtained from NSHE.
Yeah, his role prior to working with us, I don't know what his exact job title was, but he was basically in charge of doing faculty compensation studies for the University of California system, which includes UCLA, UC Berkeley, UC Davis, and he worked for Ellen.
That's right.
And he introduced us to Ellen about 5 or 6 years ago.
And of course, we have Ellen with us. She's a graduate of MIT. She obtained her PhD in inorganic chemistry from that institution. For this particular project, her role is communication, review of deliverables, and focusing on higher ed practices. Her input and her insights is very valuable to us because she's been both a faculty, so is the other two here, both faculty and administrator at senior level at the same time for many years.
So, yeah, so like I said, what we're trying to communicate to you is that we have a group of people that are thinkers or researchers and have on-hands experience in higher education and in the issues that we're going to be dealing with. So we're proud. When we do all of our projects, we pick projects that we want to go after, that we feel that will be good to do, and then we bring in consultants that we feel have some knowledge that that's only acquired by having been through those types of jobs to help come in and do that. Brian we brought on, because he had worked with us before, but in particular, if you have questions and stuff, you might feel more comfortable talking to a faculty member than you would to us or something. At the same time, he may understand better than we would, and he could help communicate that. And because we need to understand what your concerns and issues are so that we can incorporate those in our work.
Question.
Mm-hmm.
So would be correct, I'm just so I'm communicating correctly, you, Dan and Elena, you own the company, and everyone else you've mentioned is a consultant brought in for this particular project.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they've all worked on other projects or
Yes.
similar
Yes.
projects for you?
Yes.
Mhm.
Okay,
I haven't, well,
This is his
with
first.
them.
with them
Yeah.
on your own
This is
business.
the only time I've been at the consultant
Yeah,
for them.
he worked with us in Alamo College, but he represented the college, the faculty.
Right.
And we didn't propose him when we were, during the proposal, it was later on when we thought, that because there's going to be faculty involvement here and transparency, and we said, I wonder if Brian would be interested in doing some consulting work, both in terms of communicating, but also on the compression part of it and the analysis to bring things in, so we called him. And he was willing to do this. This was the first time he'd been working with us. Ellen started working with us back about 2007 or 2008. Jim and I, because you saw the Berkeley people there, we all were students together, and so he's worked with us, I don't know, since 2004 or something.
These guys, they go back way
Yeah.
years.
So we've done projects in Denver, a lot in Texas. We're doing one for University of Houston, not a salary compression study, but a market study on that. And I don't know if there'll be any compressions issues on it. But we're doing it for administrators and faculty, also Texas Tech University. So. Our project priorities, I know that we started late, so, and I don't want to keep you, and I want you to have a chance to ask questions, but our priorities are to establish a transmission management team. So the first thing we were trying to tell you is what the objectives and scope of work of the project are, what team will be working on it for you, and what your involvement will be. So you said you were going to be on the TMT, and we met with them yesterday morning to go over, and we had lots of conversations and stuff because people weren't sure about what needed to be done because we hadn't done the presentations yet. But basically the role is that they're to advise us, and so and to advise us interactively. So we tell them this is what we're going to do, this is the issue we're looking at, and this is how we're going to do it, and they'll say, no, I don't think so. We want, as in the case of Alamo, we want out-of-state colleges, we want these other colleges to be compared with, because the administration kind of said, we're going to compare you with the Base 8, which is the largest Texas community college, of which Alamo is, but they wanted a little more. And quite frankly, they picked the highest paying colleges. So we want Del Mar College, we want out-of-state college, and we didn't want to do it because it was meant more work. We didn't budget it, but we did it, and it turned out that the Base 8 was probably the best data around. But see, they can influence and say, well, this is what you need to look at. This is how you need to do it. Then we go do it, and then we bring it back. And then they'll decide, like in one case, the lady, she was from your school with the long black hair, was really adamant about the having out of state. And she came after the project was over. She goes, I'm really sorry you had to do that because it turned out the out of state data wasn't relevant. And primarily it was because the financial basis for funding the college and for paying faculty was different in those states. So they were not comparable. In Texas, you have to go put it on the ballot and increase taxes, right, to do it. So, or go to the state and hat in hand. So that role is to be there and be involved and help us do that. The transition from our other focus is to transition faculty from the current step to equivalent position and range, taking into account salary compression issues. Perform the internal equity analysis, collect the market data for the market factor group positions, review and update policies, and make recommendations. We probably should fix that word because we don't have the authority to do anything. What we do is say, this is what we think you should do, it goes to the team and to the administration, and they make the decisions about whether, yes, we need to do that. But they've already asked us to do it, so they're obviously open to it. And the reason is they don't want to have policies in place that are contradictory to the achievements they just made. You know, so they want to make sure that they can control salary compression in the future, also remain competitive. Provide the impact analysis and recommend course of action. Impact analysis is money. How much is it going to cost to do these things? The project phases, this is just how we've organized it. I basically really talked about it, everything. We're in phase 1 and phase 2 right now, because communication, this is one of the things that we're doing with respect to our communication strategy. And there's some slides here we'll go over about what communication is about. Our planning and due diligence means meeting, and we're still doing that, meeting with some of the administrators and getting more information, but also reviewing all of the documents and laws and becoming familiar with NCHI. We learned that term first day on NCHI. But it just lays out the sequence of events that we're doing that. We're also doing administrative faculty, and there's some places where they change. For example, there's no market study for them, but we will be looking at job placement in grades. They have 8 grades, and their job titles are in a grade, and we've been asked to evaluate whether those jobs are in the appropriate grades, whether we agree with them. And we have a process. We don't do that for faculty, and so that's one thing. The other thing that differs. Also, because they don't have a STEP program, their compression issues will be a little bit different. Okay, this is the time frame. You see we're starting here in September. And it's a fast time frame. When we went through the RFP process, it was fast. The college was in a hurry because NCHI said, here's the thing, implement it and do it by this date. And so, and by the way, everybody's the same unless you want to do a study. Well, they can't do a study. They can, but they have to let out an RFP to have open bidding. That takes time. And I know it was fast because we went through it. We went through the review process, and immediately after the review process, I think it was a couple days, they made a decision. And then after that decision, we had to go get a business license because it was a requirement for Nevada. I think we did that in like 3 days or something, give them all the forms they needed, insurance and all that stuff. And roll out a contract, it was like in 3 days, and start the project. So that's one reason why you're getting this notice at such a late date. And so and they knew that, so what they did schedule could get the videotape. We've also offered to hold more town hall meetings, and we've done that before. A lot of times faculty won't come, they haven't heard, or for other reasons they don't come, or they don't feel they were given enough time. And so we come back and but they hear from the people like yourself that have been here, and they say, you know, I think I learned something, and you probably should go because you can get input, these people are listening, and then we'll hold them again and we'll get big turnouts. So we're not opposed to that. You see that we're shooting for a January, end of a January date for the project. We're actually shooting to do that sooner. I know you wanted it. They want it sooner because they need to use the data to make the changes and incorporate them now before they do the transition. So that's kind of real fast of how the project's compressed. One thing we didn't tell you, we also do, in the private sector, we've done a lot of international work, and as funny as it sounds, mergers and acquisitions work. And and those have to be done real fast, like basically 3 months or less, because there's millions of dollars and they need to know whether it's worthwhile to do. And so we have to go in there and do this. So a 6-month, and when we started doing this type of stuff, we thought, why does it take a year to do, or a year and a half? You know, so we felt comfortable with that time frame. The communications logistics, we'll go through quickly.
I'll go through this really quickly. This is one of the requirements.
Oh, I'm sorry, she had a question.
Sorry.
I just asked you a question before. What's that time frame mean to an instructor? That the salary changes would happen in January, that they would be happening the next fiscal year? Like, what would that mean to
The college is waiting for our results and for whatever decision process they're going to go through with the faculty, and the faculty senate and the AFA, and then what happens after that, John?
For those people that are below the minimum, anyone that's identified below the minimum, what's been stated and what has been sent out is that those increases, those people entitled to increases because they're below the minimum, would get them, you know, relatively soon after the project is complete, and they would be retroactive back to July 1st, okay? The other kinds of compression equity adjustments, we have to understand how big they are, how much they are, come up with a plan for, and it's probably going to be, I'm speculating, a multi-year plan to begin to address those compression problems in terms of how we're going to deal with it.
Just to be really clear, so unless a faculty member fell off the bottom, they're not going to actually see a change in pay for
Immediate.
at least a year.
No.
Not necessarily. What I'm saying is those below minimum will get
Right, the
an
ones that
increase.
fell off.
Right. The others, because we don't yet know the scope, the cost, and all that, we don't know at this point. At what point transitioning will start, what transitioning will look like, and when transitioning will end.
See, the option to do the study was an option. They didn't, and she didn't tell colleges you have to do it. They said just move them over. The only thing you have to do is anybody below minimum needs to be brought up. After that, we don't care. I mean, I care, but they're not going to get involved about it. And so they could transition everybody today. They could have done it July 1st. That's a kind of no-brainer, you know, to do. What we want to do is be able to come up with our results and a recommendation and time or roadmap for implementing different scenarios based on our experience and based on what we've learned here. And so, but my understanding is the fast turnaround too is they would like to take action on some of those recommendations. And we always talk about resource capacity. What's the word we?
Readiness and capacity.
Readiness and capacity. So we can make any recommendations that we want that make sense, but it all depends on the organization's readiness and capacity.
To implement.
Are they ready? Do they have the capacity to do it? Sometimes some changes, there's just organizational structure doesn't work, or the culture in the organization is not ready for it. And so they'd have to do some pre-work. And then, but the biggest one is, do we have the money? And where we're going to get the money. And so that's what they do. And then they plan. This is what we can afford to do now. Now, this is what we want to do next. We have to get the money to do that. But it's on the table. It's part of the strategy, part of the budget planning process.
And that would be part of your process to make recommendations about what they should do first. Because I think that's where faculty will have fairness questions.
Yeah, that's what we would be doing that.
You would be doing it, making those recommendations forward.
Yeah, we would. Yes, we would be given alternative scenarios. But we do that working with the TMT team and with the oversight committee that we're going to show you in a minute.
I'm comfortable with the
Yeah.
whole process. I just want to make sure that I know what the right answer is.
Okay. Yeah. That's the plan.
One more question. When you say market study of practical positions, what is exactly that entails?
Okay, the hard-to-fill positions are positions that have been identified by NG as where the supply and demand is not in balance, so you have to pay more outside of your normal salary schedule. For example, nurses, IT people. I don't remember who else is on the list.
Applied and advanced technology, for instance, there are positions in there. Automotive collision instructor.
There's usually positions where people can get higher paying jobs outside, or you get rated.
Private industry.
Yeah. And so they have a market salary schedule, which is different from this salary schedule, but it's a non-tenure track position, and they come in and they're hired at that. I don't know what happens after that. They just stay. Do they get raises sometime, or?
Eligible for both cost of living increases and merit.
Okay. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, well, since I'm in Spanish and everybody thinks everybody can teach Spanish and that is a very easy position to fill, everybody thinks that's not a high demand job, and we are having a really hard time finding good qualified professors because they don't want to come here because of the salary. So that's what I'm and see if it's going to be fair. Plus, I was asking also because obviously we're coming out of an inequity in salary because of North versus South in Nevada, and the state of Nevada, how much the community college would colleges were paid versus here because they were said that they had a hard time recruiting people, you know, and that became a whole issue through years. So that's what my question is.
Oh, yeah. Fortunately, I don't think we have to deal with that, correct?
Right, I think what she's addressing is there was a funding formula issue, a discrepancy, a long-standing discrepancy between how northern institutions were funded versus southern institutions and community colleges versus universities. And the legislature took a step forward this legislative session to resolve that inequity. But on the difficult to recruit, core academic subjects are not on that list. Okay, so things like English, Spanish, science, those are not on the difficult to recruit list.
That's what I was saying.
And that's determined by NSHE.
I'm sorry?
That's determined by NSHE.
Right.
Yeah.
We have a question.
I'll just leave it to the end and see if you might answer.
Oh, okay. All right, we'll go forward.
Okay, this is what we have for communication logistics. When we presented our proposal to the selection committee, in fact, the RFP's requirements, major requirement is for vendors to have a well laid out plan, communication strategy, and how the project is going to be transparent and keep the notion of shared governance. We presented that, and this is a summary of everything that we're going to be doing in terms of communication. We're going to put together a TMT, which is already done. TMT is a transition management team. We meet once a month, and so this project started in September, and it will end in January. So in essence, we have 4 meetings left. We've met already yesterday. So we have 4 meetings left, but even though there's only 4 meetings left, we are available through web meetings, we are available through telephone and email, and I am assuming or expecting that between now and the next time we're scheduled to meet, there will be a lot of dialogues and communication because we have a lot of things to cover prior to the meeting itself. The letter announcing the project and the details of the TMT has already gone out. And that came from the Office of the Human Resources. Town hall meetings, we are in the middle of that right now. Project dashboard. The project dashboard that we have resides in our server. It is a web-based project status type of thing that you can check the status of the project, as well as documents that you can download that has to do with the project. Now, it depends on the college whether they want the project dashboard to be password protected, that only the college can access, or if they want it to be publicly accessed by everybody. Usually, it is password protected, but in the last couple of projects that we have, the clients didn't care whether or not their materials are public. So.
And one had a really good idea. They incorporated the dashboard into their human resources, so people just went through HR, and you know how the websites are at colleges. There's one for the general public, and there's one for staff, students, and stuff. And so they can put it on the one that's appropriate for the staff. They don't have to password protect it. Well, it's already your password.
There is a list of members, and do we have it finalized yet?
When we finalize it, we'll post it.
Not, okay.
Yeah, it should be finalized, and the transition management team is going to be split. It's going to be one for academic faculty and one for administrative faculty.
Now, normally what we do is we go through a process of selection if we had more time and stuff like that. And colleges will do it a different way. Here, they ask for volunteers, and they took everybody who volunteered. Usually they'll come through, and the president or somebody will review them, they'll make recommendations. And in all of our cases, we've always had them pick diversity. Not just, and I'm not talking about ethnic diversity, I'm talking about opinion diversity. They've had that. So we've always, because they know you can't have a successful project unless you have all of the views and concerns on the table. So that's never been a problem. That's probably because you're an academic institution. Yeah. People are comfortable, and should be, with academic freedom.
Yeah. And then we have ongoing communication communication, of course, drafts and final report. We anticipate to have several drafts, probably 8, 9, or 10, before we even provide the final draft.
Part of our communication strategy too is the transition management team. Their role will be to communicate, tell us what's going on, and inform other people.
Then, of course, appeals process. The appeals process is something that we decided to maintain from your last round of study, and because we are very concerned and we are very, we strive for quality in every project and deliverable that we provide, so we anticipate 0 appeals.
If you want to see our work, the Alamo Colleges report that we did, it's called the 2008-2009 Alamo Colleges.
Faculty compensation.
It didn't include compression in that because that came later on. But that study, we have data on 16 different community colleges, 12 I think inside Texas and 4 outside of Texas. But it gives adjunct rates, it gives duty days, it gives overloads, summertime pay, units, all the policy, initial placement, whether they pay for rank, where the sources of funding come from. I mean, you know, it's a pretty good thing. I know that Alamo had never seen it before. Most of the community colleges had never seen that level of detail. But that's how we were able to do our research. And when we were doing the study, Jim McLaughlin was the chief financial officer at the time. I was on the phone to him one time. I know exactly where I was, in the parking lot. And when he was talking to me, he was questioning something that we did. And then all of a sudden he goes, wait a minute. He goes, I'm confused. He goes, did they give you the data, or are you saying that you have a database? I go, yeah, I have a database. He goes, who's in that database? I said, it's about 6,800 faculty. He goes, where'd you get that from? I go, the colleges. He goes, you have an actual database? And I said, yes. I said, we didn't ask them what's your average salary of your administrators or your faculty. Those numbers are the numbers that are there. Those averages are calculated from live data. And I remember he was so surprised, remember? that we had that. But because we had done so much work in the private sector, we knew how to get the data. So.
That's the Alamo College faculty compensation.
Yeah, 2008, 2009 Alamo Colleges faculty.
Compensation study.
Is that online anywhere? Do we have? Or?
It is on Alamo College's website.
Is it still on there, Brian?
You know, I haven't looked. I'm guessing it might be that.
But anyway, it'll show you the quality of work that we did in the detail. This, real quickly, was an example of what was going on at Alamo Colleges when we came in. They have 7 salary classifications for their academic faculty compared to your 5. They also pay for rank, and this doesn't include rank salaries in here. But this is kind of what it looked like. And basically, you're looking at people that were hired in 2010. And this shows the distribution, but you'll see variability. So they said if you were hired in 2010 and I was hired in 2010, we were both in the PhD rank, and you're making more than me, we want to know why. You know, why is that? Oh, drop.
So these scatter plots and the MA plus 12, MA plus 24 are Alamo College.
Yeah.
That has caused some confusion.
Yeah.
You probably heard.
What's that?
You probably already heard that.
What?
Everyone was confused, or some people were confused.
Oh, they thought it was yours?
They thought there was going to be a change to the classification.
Oh. Ooh, yeah, yours. Yes, yes. People. One thing's good about this, you come to the meeting, you'll get a feel for us, and you'll walk out here and you'll know whether you think that we're the deceptive type or you know, something like that. Whether we're doing that. Well, it happens. I mean, we can get into colleges where the relationship between faculty and administration is so adversarial, you're already, you know. I remember we walked to one college and the administrator says, oh, you people are so nice, I hope our faculty doesn't kill you. It was like, yeah. Have you for lunch, yeah. Have you for lunch. Anyways, this is what it looked like when we started the study. Okay. Oh yeah, there is one other thing. If you look at this, you'll see it kind of has like a funnel effect on that.